Hello, John Smith.
Pocahontas, that tree is talking to me.
Hey, you geeks! There seems to be a general consensus among the cosmere fandom that Cultivation is going to be the shard to look out for in Wind and Truth, as she always has some sort of zany plan that will upend the Sanderlanche. However, if Cultivation does upend the Sanderlanche again, I don't think it will be to save the Radiance, but rather to be shattered.
You must cut down the mightiest tree in the forest with a herring!
This video will contain spoilers through Rhythm of War as we examine the seeds of knowledge of good and evil that Cultivation has given to humans of Roshar, and how her actions as the World Tree of Roshar have overextended her influence, leaving her vulnerable to be cut down in keeping with the Mesopotamian mythos I see at the heart of the Stormlight archive. Though there is always hope that her third and final seed will sprout into a new Tree of Life. Eventually. Cultivation's seeds. Thus far, we're aware that Cultivation has planted 3 seeds in the persons of Dalinar, Taravangian, and Lift.
Now, do you see our tree? Everything that made that giant tree is already contained inside this tiny little seed.
We therefore assume, like Wendell, that Cultivation must have some sort of secret, all-encompassing plan that will save the day in the end. Mother has been intervening far more than we assumed, but behind a cloud of subterfuge. She uses tales of the old magic to distract, and to make it less obvious the specific ones she's drawing to her. And we have formed this assumption based off of repeated, verifiable events. Cultivation's intervention is what allowed Dalinar to find honor in the face of odium. I think I know why the memories came back, he whispered. Odium was going to make me remember once I faced him. I needed to learn to stand up again. All my pain these last 2 months was a blessing. And in Rhythm of War, Cultivation got exactly what she wanted. For Taravangian to kill Raze and avenge Honor while taking up the shard honorably? You were heading in this direction. All I could do was hope that if you succeeded, my gift would work, that I had changed you into someone who could bear this power with honor. I realize the power is overwhelming. You can do better than Raze ever did. He smiled and took her hand. Inside, he exulted. Oh, you wonderful creature, he thought. You have no idea what you have done. It is the true essence of tragedy for a person to get exactly what they want.
What we want, what we need is all the same thing, yes?
And yet the fandom seems to ignore Taravangian's assertion that he's got Cultivation now, as we've seen her plan swoop in and save the day twice now. We're waiting for a third, and we know there's a third in the person of Lift. Why hadn't Cultivation just understood? Cultivation was supposed to be some sort of starving god. It was her fault if a little girl came and begged for a promise, and the god deliberately misinterpreted, and Lift liked who she was. But Lift isn't slated to be the focus character until Stormlight 6, which would be a day late and $1 short to saving the ending of Stormlight 5. Now, I have no doubt that Cultivation's seed will come to fruition and bloom in Lift eventually, but as Preservation and Honor have shown, shards need not be alive to see the final results. Tree of the World. Since Cultivation is such a secretive shard, I am going to dive way too deep on Shallan seeing her depicted as a tree in the mural at the bottom of Urithiru. The art on the wall was much more enigmatic, a solitary figure hovering above the ground before a large blue disc, arms stretched to the side as if to embrace it. Depictions of the Almighty in his traditional form as a cloud bursting with energy and light. A woman in the shape of a tree, hands spreading toward the sky and becoming branches. When the singers take Yurithiru in Rhythm of War, Venli confirms that this tree lady is in fact Cultivation. And we're going to just leave Honor and his suspicious blue disc out of this video. It's weird, right? That Cultivation symbol is a tree. She is the goddess of cultivated plants. And goddesses of cultivated plants, like Demeter or Inanna, aka Ishtar of Sumeria, their symbols generally involve wheat shocks of some sort. So shouldn't Cultivation's symbol, on Roshar at least, be a rock bud, their primary source of grain? And why instead is she associated with a tree and generally just the wildest valley Dalinar's ever seen? She's more like Grandmother Willow with the soul of a dragon.
All right, that's enough.
But perhaps we need to expand our definition of cultivation, as when a force of divine nature is doing the cultivating, no matter how wild a place is, it could still be constituted as a garden, often with trees, magical trees, of course. Not to mention that Sanderson, in making divine figures for the Stormlight archive, generally seems to gender swap divine figures from ancient Mesopotamian myths. And men, god emperors, in Mesopotamian myths tend to use trees as a way of boasting of their greatness. My king is like a huge mess tree. Son of Enlil, this tree has grown high, uniting heaven and earth. Its crown reaches the heaven, its trunk is set upon the earth. He who is made to shine forth in lordship and kingship. Enermerkar, the son of Utu. And this comparison of the greatness of kings as trees is a very common cultural way of explaining things, as we see it repeated in the Bible, in the book of Daniel.
And one night, while Babylon was sleeping, the king had a dream.
My lord, the dream concerned those who hate you. The tree that you saw, which grew and became strong, whose height reached the heavens, and which could be seen by all the earth, it is you, O king, who have grown and become strong. For your greatness has grown and reaches to the heavens, and your dominion to the end of the earth. And Cultivation, like Mr. Nezer, has claimed all of Roshar as her dominion. All things must be cultivated. What I take from you will grow back, eventually. This is part of the cost. It will do me well to have a part of you, even if you ultimately become his. You were always bound to come to me. I control all things that can be grown, nurtured. Though perhaps she would have also done well to have a Daniel in her life to warn her that it is basically a trope for such great world-consuming trees to get cut down. Tree of Knowledge.
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
By the end of Rhythm of War, I don't think it's a stretch to call Cultivation a knowledgeable, world-encompassing shard. And according to Race back in Oathbringer, that was her goal. Some people identify her with Roshar, the spren of the world itself. She'd like that, Odium said. She's used her knowledge to expand her influence to the ends of Roshar, and even to braze itself by having Taravangian slay Raze. Now, Cultivation accomplished this by giving the knowledge of good and evil so far to both Dalinar and Taravangian. Curiously, the tree that is known for doing this in the Garden of Eden is also, some linguists say, should be better translated as: the knowledge imparted by the fruit of this tree is the knowledge of good and evil, a much misunderstood phrase. We must reckon it with the literary device of a merism. The antonyms good and evil mean everything here. And of course, big world-encompassing, all-knowing trees in Mesopotamian myths have a habit of getting cut down. Gilgamesh, the great deforester of the gods' favorite cedars, is also known for cutting down an mythic willow tree in which many beasts and persons dwelled to make a throne for the goddess Inanna. The tree Gilgamesh tore at its roots, plucked at its branches. The sons of his city who accompanied him cut down its branches. To pure Ninana, for her throne he gives them, for her couch he gives them. This poem I find particularly on point because the King of Cairion's decision to become a tree killer had to be tied into mythology somewhere, and here it is. Not to mention, for Stormlight fourth wall purposes, Inanna is, as I've said, also known as Ishtar, and Ishtar seems to be gender bent into the person of Ishar, who was probably involved in the downfall of Urithiru at the Recreants.
It's going down. I'm yelling timber.
Which bridges us nicely to another particularly on-point myth, often touted as the Hindu equivalent of the Tower of Babel. Babel-Urithiru comparison video coming soon. But this myth focuses on a tree, the pride of the tree of knowledge, or the world tree, which grew in the center of the earth, and its head was in heaven. It said in its heart, I shall hold my head in the heaven, and spread my branches over all the earth, and gather all men together under my shadow, and protect them, and prevent them from separating. But Brahm, to punish the pride of the tree, cut off its branches and cast them down to the earth. I'm not quite comfortable with calling this a Hindu myth because I've only ever seen it written or referred to by Western sources, and Hindu mythology is very well documented. While this could be an authentic Hindu story from a thriving oral tradition of which I am completely unaware, it could also be a fabrication, but why the fabrication is believable is because it uses the ancient Mesopotamian trope, cut down the world-encompassing tree, and just switches out which god is doing the cutting.
The art of disguise is knowing how to hide in plain sight.
This similarity is not lost on the Western recorders of this myth, as they often compare it to the Tower of Babel and Babylon, where, of course, David had some more advice for Mr. Nezer and his world-encompassing tree. And inasmuch as the king saw a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven and saying, chop down the tree and destroy it, but leave its stump and roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze in the tender grass of the field. Thus the trope of smiting the tree that contains everything is so iconic for Mesopotamian literature that it's almost odd that the Edenic tree of the knowledge of good and evil, we don't know what its fate actually was. However, the 1980s musical Children of Eden has rectified the situation for us, and it too gets smited. Which seems pretty appropriate fodder for a Sanderson theory in my opinion. After all, Cultivation is a dragon who gives out boons, and knows that every boon must have its own curse. Tree of Life. But let us not forget that there is another famous mythic Mesopotamian tree that could also apply to cultivation. The Tree of Life. After all, her light is called Life Light, and it really does seem to sprout new growth, especially around lift. Her hand glowed faintly with white light, like vapor coming off the skin. The seeds that saw the light started to grow fast. Vines burst from the seeds and wormed into the cracks between the window and its frame. But while no one has ever smoked this tree, it is notoriously hard to find or access. As in Genesis, the presence of the Tree of Life in the garden is why God kicked Adam and Eve out and sent an angel, complete with flaming sword, to defend the tree.
Didn't you have a flaming sword? You did. It was flaming like anything. What happened to it?
Then, of course, there's Gilgamesh, whose main quest is to find the Tree of Life, and he spends several tablets angering the gods, facing mortality head-on, and other shenanigans of adventures before meeting Ur-Shanabi, the Sumerian equivalent of Noah, who helps him find what is translated here as the plant. Ur-Shanabi. This plant is a plant against decay, by which a man can attain his survival. I will bring it to Uruk-Haven. But he did not keep it for long. A snake smelled the fragrance of the plant, silently came up, and carried off the plant. Thus we see consistency throughout the Mesopotamian mythos, that even if one finds the Tree of Life, one cannot keep it. Also, snakes suck. Fortunately, there are no literal snakes on Roshar, and arguably Stormlight or Lifelight already does what Gilgamesh's plant is said to do.
You dig a little deeper, you find everything you need.
In his brief period of ownership of the plant, Gilgamesh names it, quite literally, the old man becomes a young man plant. So it promises in his tale not so much to grant a Tolkiensian elf-like immortality, but rather eternal youth, like Peter Pan.
I'll never grow up, never grow up, never grow up.
Which ties us back neatly to Lift, the little girl who won't grow up somehow. Now, she may become the next bearer of cultivation, as Corellium Avast may also become a victim of the other great fantasy trope of slaying a dragon.
You didn't slay the dragon?
It's on my to-do list. Now come on!
Thus, no matter which way you slice it, I don't think cultivation is going to survive the front 5. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more. Bye!